Hello, everyone. Thank you for waiting for that little 2-minute interruption. But it is with my great pleasure to introduce our special guest for the evening for Alien Day 2020. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, Thomas?
Sure, yeah. I'm Tomas Härenstam. I'm the lead designer of the Alien RPG that was released back in December. I work with Free League Publishing, or I'm one of the partners of that publisher. So yeah, I guess that's me.
Well, it's great to have you on here. What an exceptional 6 to 7 months it's been for Alien RPG. Such an amazing system. One of the most beautiful art books I have seen in a very long time. I am absolutely in love with the art. And today
Thank
specifically
you.
is no problem, is a big day for you. I mean, Alien Day, obviously it's the namesake, but you just announced. I mean, we kind of knew it was in the works for a bit, but the announced for the pre-orders for Destroyer of Worlds, a cinematic module, and for the starter set coming in August.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you mind telling us a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. No, I mean we've been planning this stuff for some time. So we basically we have the starter set, which is we want to collect, I mean, all the stuff that came in different parts. So the starter set is more like packing it all together in a better way than to have like all the maps and the cards and everything spread out in separate packages. So this is just to put it all into one package and basically get something you can put into the hands of the player, and just this is all you need to get going, and just have everything in there. So that's the starter set is more of a that kind of a thing. So the new stuff is Destroyer of Worlds. I mean, that's the one I'm super excited about because
Mm-hmm.
that's where we're getting really new stuff. So it's a cool scenario. It's written by Drew Gaska, who wrote Chariot of the Gods as well, and it kind of continues that story, even though it doesn't. You're not expected to play with the same characters
Mm-hmm.
because they will probably not have survived, or at least not all of them from Chariot. So we don't do that. So it's a completely new story, new characters, everything. But there are elements of the plot that carry on into Destroyer. So if you played Chariot, you'll pick up on some stuff, which can be fun. So it builds like a bigger arc. But in this, the big difference in Destroyer, you play colonial marines out of aliens. I mean that's who you will be
Mm-hmm.
playing in this scenario, and it's a pretty meaty thing. It's a cinematic scenario, so it's kind of constructed in the same way as Chariot, but it's a bit. I would say it's bigger. I mean, the area you actually explore and play in is bigger. The story is bigger. There's more stuff. So it's a quite an ambitious project, and it's even though it's like one scenario, it's a pretty meaty one. And then in terms of packaging, it's something else that we wanted to try out for this game is to have it's packaged in a box. Because we want to get like handouts and pre-made character sheets and a big map and cards for personal agendas and all kinds of stuff. So it's like a whole package of stuff to play this cinematic scenario. So yeah, I guess that's it in short.
That's very cool that you have it like all set up ready in a box because not a lot of modules and supplements for tabletop role playing games at this time are available with the handouts and the cards and the tokens readily available. A lot of that stuff typically comes as extras, or a third party develops that stuff
Oh,
in one box. That makes me very excited.
I was,
Cool.
I was about to say it's almost like you're building your own franchise. Like Chariot of the Gods was very much a callback to the original Alien, but so it's some sort of sameness, but enough of like a difference and uniqueness that you could still go into it enjoying it. I love the idea of the kind of the neomorphs and the morphling, almost like zombie type enemies, the infected, which
Yeah, yeah.
definitely was a great surprise for someone that when I was running it, my players were expecting right to just run into a xenomorph and that be it, and they got this whole new arc of it. And definitely, Destroyer of the Gods, tends to kind of have all that same scenario. Now we're going to aliens. So, would you say that this scenario is more focused on that kind of high octane action that made Aliens like the big thing that it was, rather than where Chariot of the Gods was like more that slow creeping horror of like waking up and discovering that spaceship.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there is definitely something to that. I mean, but it's interesting because it's the two movies are quite different. In the second one, you kind of have the Marines mowing down like scores of xenomorphs, whereas in the first one, just one is a real big problem. And in the game, I mean, of course, in this scenario, you will have player characters with a bit more of heavier guns and better training, and so they can take on a more dangerous opponent. But still, as the game works, it's still xenomorphs are very, very deadly. So it's a balance thing here to kind of make that we don't want to move away from that feeling that even a single xenomorph is a deadly threat to a group of characters. So I feel it definitely has a bit more of that Aliens kind of feel, but maybe I think the element of danger from just a single Xeno is perhaps bigger than in the movie, and that kind of it's somewhere in between maybe. So it has some of that fear and deadliness of Chariot and of the first Alien movie as well, even in Destroyer.
That's very cool. Very cool.
With the introduction of like the second cinematic module, it's always been a question because it's always been like kind of like a big discussion whether Aliens, it has the campaign play, but it has the cinematic play. In your, maybe your personal opinion, I guess, as a writer and as a player, would you feel that the game itself is definitely more presented for the cinematic? Like, what is the true way to play the game, whether it be the cinematic play or the campaign play?
Yeah, I mean, the sort of simple answer is both, but you're right. I mean, the focus has become more on the cinematic side, and I guess that's and actually the idea originally was that because we're also working on a campaign book for campaign play for Colonial Marines, and we're well into that. So it's a lot of work has already been done. It's well underway, but because of planning and stuff, we could not finish them both in time because we really wanted to get Destroyer released around in the summer, at least like late summer, and we just realized we cannot finish the campaign book and release it at the same time, so we had to split that up. So at the moment, and that means for this announcement, of course, the focus is going to be on Destroyer, which is a cinematic scenario, so it'll be a heavy focus on that game mode. But just a few months after, we'll get the campaign book that expands campaign play and really focuses on that. So it's a bit of a juggling act, but we're really trying to focus on both and give a lot of tools and options for both modes of play. So hopefully, I mean, I know there's some talk because there's always these kinds of discussions whether Alien with its deadliness and all of that, does it even fit for campaign play? How do you actually do that? So I definitely understand those questions because that's a lot of the same questions that we struggle with and discussed a lot during the design of the game. So I hope we'll be able to show everyone who's wondering about campaign play and want to know more about that. Just a few months after, down by Christmas or something, they should have a solid book that kind of gives all that cool stuff for campaign play. So we can show off that as well. But I guess for the time being, right now, cinematic is kind of where the focus is at.
I definitely say, good things come to those who wait. And I mean, a campaign book is, rationally going to be more meatier and more of a bigger endeavor than doing a cinematic play scenario. So I completely understand that. And I would even argue that, with the good 70% of the main rule book is just setting and world building. And I feel like that gives you most of your tools to build a campaign out of it your own. So how has Free League and you in general just been like to the kind of the public acceptance, like the rejoicement of this game? It seems to be this is like the next great horror RPG that we've been waiting for so long for.
No, it's been fantastic. I mean, it really has, and it's always a big, leap to do a project like this on a franchise like this. So yeah, I mean that was a big. really big project for us, and of course going into it knowing that this great fandom and this fan base, and we have to get this right. We can't fuck this up. So this is really important that we have to get this right. So yeah, and a big help, and I cannot stress this enough, that we mentioned him already, but Drew Gaska, he worked as a franchise consultant for Fox on Alien before. He knows the brand super well. I mean, I'm a super fan as well, but I'm not an expert on the level of Drew. I mean, there is like levels in this thing. So I mean,
Yeah.
His expertise and detailed knowledge of the lore has also been crucial to get things right for the game. And it's been a good cooperation because his expertise on the lore side combined with our kind of approach to game design and getting like game design and rules design to kind of enhance the theme of the game and get that through at the table. I think it kind of worked really well together. At least that's the way we see it. So it's been a really good cooperation between us and the team and Drew, who's now he's part of the team, but we didn't know him before this project. So so that's been great.
Wes, did you have any questions before I go to like the big one that we were talking about?
Yeah. I just have a quick question because you mentioned Drew being a super fan and everything like that, like leagues above, and him being the lead setting writer. Working together with a team like that, and then you in conjunction with the rule design. How much more beneficial has it been to have him be kind of the steering wheel on writing? On multiple, like on not just Chariot of the Gods, but also the main setting in the core rulebook, and now Destroyer of Worlds. Do you think it benefits from having him be kind of the streamlined guy with that, instead of, say, giving it up to another writer at that point?
Yeah, I mean that's been the process now. We do have other writers as well who have done bits here and there, and a guy called Paul Elliott is working on the campaign book. But to get the story stuff, the main storylines, and also the campaign bits for the campaign book, to have Drew do that, it kind of really ties the world together. I mean, there's a lot of people involved, but to have one person who sort of drives the main vision for that story arc that we're building, because we're building, even though each cinematic is its own thing and it's its own story, the cinematics we're planning they all tie together, like I mentioned in the beginning, and we have another one that we're sort of working on after that, and they also all tie into the campaign books, because those also have like campaign arcs that are a bit longer term arcs. So all of this ties together. To get that to really work in a good way, it's perfect to have someone like Drew to kind of drive that vision, and then so it feels like a cohesive whole and not just like a patchwork of different ideas. So it's really important to us that it feels like a world and a story, and like that kind of all comes together, and not just for like one product, but for the long term.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely the question that's been on our mind. If you wouldn't mind indulging us with a little bit of story time. I know there might be some things that you can't say, and then we completely understand. But we definitely want to kind of know because sometimes the background of Alien, even how it got made, is sometimes almost as interesting as the game and the franchise itself. How did that happen? Did 20th Century Fox did they come to you? Did you go to them? Like, what was the story on getting the rights and being like, hey, this is something that we're actually going to be working on. This is like the new thing.
Yeah, it's an interesting story, and I don't even know the details because part of it I think happened. It's one of these things that the kind of a dream project just suddenly comes true. It actually started on our end. We just had like a brainstorm. We discussed different like licensed properties, like movies or whatever that we would want to work on, like a dream licenses or dream properties that would be like that perfect thing. But this is like 2.5 years ago or something like that, I guess. And we just had that kind of a brainstorm, and we had a short list of I think 5 that were just because we had done other licensed games before, but for smaller licenses. So So this was like the dream list, and Alien was definitely on that list and at the top of that list. So, and just pretty shortly after we started exploring this, I came into contact with a guy called Joe LaFavi. He runs a company called Genuine Entertainment, and he works as a brand manager and handles these kinds of licensing agreements between like the property owners and the game publishers and so on. So he's been involved with that kind of world for a very long time. And it turned out that he was a big fan of Tales from the Loop, which is one of our earlier games. So he knew about us and that game, and he was like looking for. It turned out that this is at least what I hear. After that, he was kind of looking for a way to work with us because of Tales from the Loop. And then it turned out that he had the right connections to approach Fox about Alien. So it was like all these things coming together in like the best possible way. And then, yeah, it took some, of course, a couple of months of talks back and forth, but very smooth. And then, it just, it all came together. So that is, I guess, the short of it.
Oh, like a perfect storm of just coincidences and relationships. Now, to kind of dive a little bit more meatier into that question, when you were designing the initial Alien RPG, were there ground rules that Fox gave you, like this has to be in it or this can't be in it? What can you share with us a few of those things?
Well, yeah, I mean, there were not super strict ground rules set by them before. It wasn't like not really like that. It was more a matter of us presenting a vision of what we wanted to do, and we also learned from them what else was happening in the franchise, because we want to like create our own vision, but it's also good to know what else is happening with Alien overall. So we got some insight into that, and so it's and then we made a pitch and just presented, this is what we would like to do, and we presented it to them and got some feedback and so on. But pretty much that was the way I felt we were pretty free to present the vision of the game that we wanted to make, and then they checked that, reviewed it, approved it, and so on. But it was more of, I felt that we had quite a bit of creative freedom in that process, which was really great.
I was going to say, like, one of my favorite parts about the whole game in general and like the lore is that a lot of people with fandom, you'll see them pick and choose which movies exist, which movies don't exist. And sometimes it can be a problem, but you've included everything. Like, I love Covenant, I love Prometheus, down to the fact where I remember getting the rule book and sending a snapshot of my camera from the physical book to my friend, going, "Oh my God, Alien Isolation is canon," because they mentioned the Sevastopol. And I was super excited that like that experience that I had and that story that I loved, that I was worried was never really going to get left behind out of the canon. Alien RPG had made that canon for me. How important was you to like get every bit of information from the main movies to like the new trilogy or new duology so far?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's because we really wanted to make this not only an RPG set in the Alien universe, but also like a source book, an art book, a source book for the whole universe. So we felt it was really important to bring all of that stuff in there. And we also decided to set the game slightly after Aliens and Alien 3. So it's pretty much, we have all those like the original movies and also the prequels being part of the history, and also other media like Alien Isolation was a big one, and also there's like references to lots of comics, novels, all kinds of stuff that we
there's a bunch of stuff that I saw from.
Yeah. So and that's it, just because that's one of the things we wanted to do to show that this is not just like these isolated films, but it's actually a world. So that's really what we wanted to do with the game, was to create that sense of an entire world, and just use all of that content that has been produced for the last 40 years as part of the history of this world. So that was very much something we wanted to do. And as for Alien Isolation, I think where it came to like the tone and the feel and kind of what to do, because we wanted to go, I think that was a really important inspiration for us as well, what they did in that game, because we are looking style-wise. I mean, mostly maybe to like the first two movies, because those are actually closest in the timeline to where we are. And the prequel movies are happened even earlier, so they're more of like earlier history. But I think I like those as well, and we wanted to bring in stuff from them. But I think Alien Isolation was a cool way to look to see how they kind of do almost like a bit of a retro sci-fi feel to bring that in there, and I think they did it in a great way, and that was an inspiration for us.
Great answer. I'm just gonna read just one or two more questions from the chat actually, who have been tuning in, and then I'll let you go because I know it's very late for you there, and I super appreciate you staying up. But so
Sure.
whatever we were asked, can we expect more content focusing on themes explored in the third and fourth film, and / or the lore explored in the comics, or will the books focus more on a general story?
I mean, the third and the fourth film. The interesting thing, I think, and that's, I mean, I think the fourth. I mean, the film definitely has its benefits, but it's set like 200 years into the future from where we're at in the game. That makes it a bit hard to actually go there in terms of, and we would be almost like a different game because it's so far in the timeline from where we are and where the other films are set. So it's a bit of an outlier, and that's why it's not really included. But we do have some bits like some Easter eggs that are actually connected to that. Like there is a ship in Chariot called the Sotillo, and the model is actually the Betty from Alien 4 because it's mentioned.
I was wondering.
So that it's mentioned in the lore around Alien 4 that ship is an really old model that is actually, it's so old it was actually existed when our game is set. So we had like a plausible explanation to actually have that ship in there. So that's just one small thing, but at least it's something connected to Alien 4. So I mean, from the other films where going forward, we'll definitely be diving deep into all kinds of media that's been published. I mean, all the books, comics, and there will definitely be more references to those going forward as well. So probably you can expect to see a lot more of that.
I'm not gonna lie. I was thinking that as well when I was playing Chariot of the Gods, but to have that confirmed just brings like a huge smile to my face.
So with that being the case, with definitely looking forward, there's Easter eggs and stuff like that. Is there a future, maybe a possibility that down the line, it could be a few more years later, we could see a crossover with Free League's Predator game system and then an Alien versus Predator?
Maybe you never know. I mean, it's not happening right now, but who knows down the line? It'd be very cool.
Yeah, agreed.
And I'll ask this final question and this is just to you. On your list, so you've made Alien RPG, you've come out with this like star hit of a tabletop. What would be your dream movie, like project franchise to work on for like another book? Like what was the other franchise or just movie in general that you're like, oh, this would be great for a tabletop?
Right. I mean, it's hard to beat Alien, to be honest. It's one of my absolute favorites in films of all time. It's such a cool, epic, iconic universe that it is very, very, very hard to beat. So I mean, there might be one or two others that are really cool as well, and maybe we'll see. Maybe one of them might actually happen, but I can't talk about it right now. So I mean, I don't have anything to share at the moment, but wait and see, and we'll see what happens.
All right, then. Thank you so much for speaking with us today, Thomas. I really appreciate you taking, some time out of your busy schedule, giving us a rundown for Alien Day 2020, and just sharing the love of the game with us. Because not only the franchise, like this game, Free League's been on an amazing roll the past couple with Things from the Flood, Tales from the Loop, like just stellar hit after hit after hit. And I think just like one of the best things is that I can even show my like tabletop friends the art, because I like to think that, like you were saying before, it doubles as like an art book almost for all just like the beautiful pieces. But thank you very much, Thomas.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your night. Go get some sleep, and
Yeah.
happy Alien Day 2020.
Yeah, happy Alien Day. Good time. All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Thomas.
We're going to take
Thank
a
you.
quick break, everyone, and then we'll be back for more Alien Day 2020 discussion. BRB.